Good morning and great morning, guys. Welcome to another fabulous episode of Exit Strategies Radio Show. Hey, I am your host, Cohen J. Millett, broker and owner of Exit Realty Low Country Group in beautiful North Charleston, South Carolina. Hey, if this is your first time listening to this show, you, sir or ma'am, are in for a treat because our mission here is to empower our community through financial literacy and real estate education, guys. We're legacy building. You've heard me say it. What's my mantra? That is what we live by. And we want you, as you are doing the things that will change your family and the dynamic financially for generations yet to come, we want you to put a hashtag on that thing that says legacy building, because that is what you are doing. So for our listeners, guys from one part of the state to another, always want to give a shout out to our folks that's listen to us in the Charleston market. Pastor Vanderbilt Evans, Senior. Again, he'll jack me up if I don't put that senior on that thing. And Elder Evans, I appreciate you guys so much. And to the countless other people, the LaQ family that tune in, and countless others who make this show relevant, who take the information and say, hey, let's figure out what we can do with this. For our listeners in Marion County, M&M, Mullins, Marion, guys, thank y'all so much for listening in. I really appreciate you all as we are endeavoring to change the narrative for us all. So today I'm super excited because, and I get a little giddy about this particular subject matter because it's so fascinating to me, because I love real estate, and in turn, I love to make it work in manner to empower others, to create opportunities for others. So the gentleman that we have with us today is none other than Joe Downs. Now, Joe is the CEO. So for some of us, what that means, he is the BOSS, and this is his space. And he is with the Bellrose Group. So Joe, good morning. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, and I'm even doing better now, though. Now I got to live up to that amazing introduction. I'm not someone that, yes, the buck stops with the CEO, but I certainly way more humble than that. I hate the title CEO because I always think of the CEO of Disney when you say CEO. That's a real guy. I'm just a
Well,
dude.
the funny thing is, we look at the letters and frame it as a title, but we forget that they still work. And then
Yeah.
forget they still work.
Where's my
So,
private jet? I don't have a jet.
Joe, thank you for being on. Now, I didn't get into, so I need you to pull this out for us. Obviously, we'll quote unquote sit the grocery bag on the table and start unpacking things today. But if you don't mind, give our listeners like high level overview of who you are, your company, and what you guys do.
Should love to. I'm gonna skip 5 minutes at least of how I got into storage. The bottom line is I'm an entrepreneur, and that's what I've come to know and understand later in life. Back and go, hey, you're an entrepreneur. And I ended up in storage just because I had to reinvent. So I've had a number of different companies and been involved in different things over the years, all real estate based since, or at least for the last 20, 25 years, all real estate based. But I've had to do some reinventing through that real estate cycle in different asset classes, even inside of real estate. Ended up in storage because I guess I was attending enough conferences, alternative investment conferences, whether an attendee or a vendor, made someone's marketing list. And I started getting emails about self storage. And Corin, I didn't know the first thing about self storage 7 years ago. And I was in commercial real estate and I was at conferences. There was never a self storage sponsor or vendor there. I've driven by them a lot. I guess I noticed them. I don't know. I'm Generation X. Because I'm 51. It puts me square in the middle of, I think that's square in the middle of Gen X. Are you similar age?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've rented storage or not. We're not hoarders typically. I have a house with an attic and a basement and a garage. If I need storage, I'm just being totally honest with you. If I
Uh
need storage, I look at myself and I think I have a hoarding problem.
huh.
That said, we love all of you. You do not have a hoarding problem. You have a storage. That is my own personal opinion and reflection. But I say all that to say I didn't storage was not on my radar until I got an email about real estate without toilets, tenants, and trash. And that was the first thing that catches your eye. Although that's not even true. That's just a marketing statement, right? You still have tenants and sometimes they leave trash.
Uh
But
huh.
It's not obviously it's not the same as the distinction they're trying to make is between storage and residential, right?
Mhm.
And they are night and day. And there's a lot of similarities, but there's probably more differences than there are similarities. And I was saying to you earlier, we're almost closer to a hotel than we are to a multifamily eventual property. We're not landlords. We don't have the same laws, et cetera. But the point is, there was a marketing piece that caught my eye, and that wasn't even what sold me on wanting to learn more about storage was this nugget. And I said I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm also someone that likes niches. I'm fascinated by niches. And I want to investigate what people tell me I'm wasting my time with. And anytime there's a general consensus that that's stupid, that's dumb, you'll lose money, I'm interested. You've now just challenged me to find out what you're missing. So when I learned about storage that, and my other business, by the way, is distressed debt. We buy
Uh-huh.
residential second mortgages. We
Uh-huh.
were told we are insane to be buying those. And yet 15 years later, an amazing company buying distressed second mortgages. So when I look at the storage industry and I see a stat, and this is 6 or 7 years ago when I first saw it, that it was 75 to 80% owned by mom and pop,
Mm,
not public or
mhm,
CubeSmart or Extra Space, I was interested. That's all I needed to see because to me that meant this is a dislocated and fragmented market. And then when you also learn that the average age, what do they say, 90% of stats are made up on the spot. And I'm making that one up and this one now. But in general, it's true. It's a high percentage, like 90 plus percent are of these mom and pop owned storage facilities. So not the big boys. The average age has got to be in the 70s, right? Everyone I buy from is 70 something, maybe 60 something. I don't know, but usually 70s. So it's the older generations that own them. They were the pioneers. They were the smart
uh-huh,
ones. They're the ones that own 70% of these things now, 70, 75, depending on the stats you read. And guess what's going to be transferring ownership in the next 10, 15 years
mhm,
as they age out? And that's what we're looking for. So that's how I get into it. Who are we as a company? We look for mom and pop owned, off market. Most of the deals we buy, we've acquired 19 now in the last 5 years. Most have been off market. Only three were from brokers. Market, usually owned by a baby boomer-ish aged type person who, yes, they were the pioneers, but maybe aren't managing it as efficiently as let's say we can and do. So there's a lot of meat left on the bone in these facilities. And some of them do. Some of them are 75 and know more about technology than I do. It's a rare example, but most of them don't. So I always sound like I'm beating them up when I'm saying we can come in and buy these and maximize the margins and do all this. And when you start getting to the nitty gritty of how these things run, and there's things we look for, like they're always full and they have the lowest rates in town and their customers love them and their website is from the MySpace era. And there's all kinds of other things that we see. And it sounds like I'm beating them up because they're not tech savvy and they haven't kept up with the times. They don't know how to maximize the margins and all that. But they always leave the settlement table with between $1 million and $5 million in the facilities we buy, so they're not that dumb.
look at that doesn't sound like a bad paycheck at all.
No, they were the
What I
pioneers. Yeah.
so Joe, that leads me something you touched on, agent out there not managing as well, which makes perfect sense. You started doing something a particular way, and we know that technology and market shift is such an advanced rate than what they did so long ago. So my imagination, sometimes people just aren't keeping up. So what do you see kind of like the current trends, and where do you see the self-storage industry going? I know that technology is allowing you guys to be a lot more efficient and possibly more effective. So what do you see happening?
Yeah, efficient, effective, all the above, and it's not just because of technology, it's also the intersection of the age groups. Gen Xers like us, only 10% of us use self-storage and or will in our lives. The next generation, it's 30%. The one after that, it's gonna be like 50%, they're saying. Not only technology, but it's the dynamics of the generations who, by the way, are more tech savvy. So technology has to change with storage. It was changing already. COVID was actually an accelerant on the adoption of technology. And now it's just, there's no going back. So what do we see? Case in point, this actually dovetails perfectly into a lot of the things we look for with mom and pop run facilities. So I mentioned the website. How about the access? How do you rent a unit from a mom and pop run facility? Do I have to go there? Do I
Mm,
rent it over the phone? Do I have to talk to somebody? Can you imagine having to talk to somebody on the phone?
mhm. Mhm.
When you're a millennial or a Gen Zer,
Yeah, they don't care nothing about that at all.
we don't wanna be talking to you.
Yeah.
So when we take over a facility, you not only can you find it from your cell phone when
Mhm,
we own and manage it, you can find it from your cell phone, you
mm,
can rent a unit from your cell phone, you can pay, auto pay, set up the auto pay on your credit card from your cell phone. We put tenant insurance in place from your right on your cell phone, right as you're renting it. And those are 4 things we're doing for an existing facility we take over. It doesn't stop there. It stops there for us, but the technology doesn't stop there going forward. When we're building these things now, we're not building them the way we used to. You have your access to the facility, you have a gate out front with maybe a fence or an arm
mm,
bar or something. You have that little keypad, right? You pull up, reach out the window, punch in the 4-digit code to get in. Not anymore. Now you're going to put your cell phone out the window, Bluetooth, and that's going to be your access to the facility. And then when you drive into you find your unit 301 and you got your little padlock on it, that's the existing facilities, and it doesn't make financial sense to retrofit them. But you're not building them today with a padlock. You're building them with a no key system. So now it's a magnetic lock. How does the magnet unlock? Your cell phone.
mhm,
In fact, the way they're building them now, it's all on your cell phone. So everything you do will be some from your cell phone. And it cuts down on theft is a real thing sometimes at facilities. But how does that happen? People come in with bolt cutters and they cut the locks off.
mhm.
There's no lock to cut. How are you getting in? It's a magnet. You have to just cut through the door, which that'll make a lot of noise and make a big scene.
That's interesting. So you asked a question earlier as my business. So we have a storage facility, not exactly next door, but one door over from there. And we keep a unit there to store signs, lock
Yeah.
boxes, and other equipment and stuff that one we don't need to have and do not belong in the office. And we had a theft a couple to few years ago where somebody broke into the facility, cut the locks, and broke in our unit and some other units and stole some items. But that's interesting. So that's real interesting. So now with having this, you got a fob or some type of pass or something that gets you in. I love that. Now, obviously, theft is a risk. That's probably a very good segue into for investors or those who decide, okay, this is what I want to do. Maybe this is a business that decide to start. What are the risks? Where are the real pain and pinch points in this industry?
Yeah, theft is something we look at, but that's part of your site location, your
Mm,
site selection, I should say. What are the risks? The risks are they're always up front in the underwriting. For us, it's when we approach where we're going to buy a facility, either for us or we also have a consulting and wholesaling business. So we have passive investors that invest with us. So we look for deals for ourselves that are a little bigger because they have to. Not every deal we see makes sense for us because of our capital stack because we use
mhm,
investors. But for plenty of other deals that we see that come through our acquisition pipeline, and we're advising either clients or we're wholesaling deals to other clients, regardless, it's the same approach, which is, do we want to be here? So we have a kind of a filter or a standard operating procedure that from an acquisition standpoint that we look at. And that's where all your risk lies. So
mhm.
it's in that process that we're eliminating risk. So I could walk through that for you if you want, because
Yes, please.
you end up answering the question. So for us, it's first question, whether forget size of the facility or who it's for, us or our client, do we want to be there? What does the population look like? Is it
Mm,
trending up or down? It's the median household income. What's the crime rate? And storage is local. So, you're in the greater Charleston area. You might have said exactly where.
mm,
I don't know it well enough to know. But not everywhere in Charleston is great for storage. People ask me all the time, is Charleston a good town for storage? I can find you
mm,
areas where it is and areas where it isn't. It's a 1, 3, 5 mile business. As you get more rural, it could be more of a 10, 15-minute drive time business. But you got to look at your radius that you're pulling customers from. So, what in that radius, what is my population trends? What is my median household income? What's my saturation rate of storage, or what we call the supply index? Storage is there based compared to the population. And we know what the numbers are that we're looking for, the supply index numbers, which either feel undersupplied, perfectly saturated, or oversupplied. These are all just factors in the deal, right? And then we're going to look at crime as well. And then if that all checks out, now I'm interested in the financials of the deal. How many units? What's the unit mix? How have you been managing it? Is the facility underperforming in our opinion based on what it should be doing because of you, the manager, Corin? Or is it the
mhm,
area? Is Corin managing the hell out of this thing? There's nothing you can do with it because the median household income's low, the population's trending down, there's constant crime because of where it's
mhm.
located. Those are all the things. that I would categorize as a risk for a new investor, it can be all mitigated out of the gates just by following a simple procedure or filter, if you will, of, hey, is this a deal we want to do? And when we're looking at deals, and we look at 1,000 deals a year, all we're doing is eliminating. We're just eliminating. We're getting to the point where how do we kill this deal? Because they can't all be good deals. We're trying to find why we don't want to do the deal. And if we can't, we got ourselves a deal here. And then it's a
So,
question for us or is it for Corin because he's hired us to find him a deal.
so something you touched on in there, or kind of you laid out, if you will, the playbook. And what I kept hearing is just because you had the idea doesn't mean it was a good idea. Just because you, oh, let's do this business or let's do this, does not necessarily mean it was a good idea, which means is that's why this process exists. And you should have a process like this, or maybe more thorough than this, to make sure that you are assessing the viability of the deal and understand the risk as well as the rewards. Now, granted, we don't want to focus merely on what could go wrong, but we need to make sure we have a full understand of that full scope so we can also see what could go right and the benefit in that. So let me ask you another question here. I'm a big housing. Storage is essentially tenants without toilets. So in that scenario, how does this industry support, if you will, the toilets? Where people are. How does it support that segment? I'm sorry.
Oh, are you asking what are you looking for in the community that to make
Yeah,
for a
how does it
symbiotic
mix?
relationship with housing?
Yeah,
So one of the things we're looking at too is the housing mix, the multifamily, what is the percentage of home ownership versus renters? And you're just looking for a healthy mix. I will tell you going forward, every new multifamily they build with smaller units and smaller closets, less space for storage. So it's always gone hand in hand and together with multifamily or just apartment living or even I guess single family rental living, depending on what that housing stock looks like. But certainly going forward with every new development, we want to be as close to them as possible because we know there's no storage for little things like the Christmas or let's just non denominational, the holiday decorations, whatever
yes.
the holiday, something
Mhm.
simple like that. Where's that going if you live in an apartment building?
Fair,
Maybe
fair.
you're lucky and there's something in the basement. There probably isn't. I guarantee you have to have a storage unit. And the question is just how big and how far away it is and how much can you afford?
What if you have a motorcycle and you ride obviously during the summer and spring, but you're not riding if you during the winter? Maybe so having a place to store that would be, yeah, so I definitely can see
Very
that's
common that we have motorcycles. We have all kinds of toys, jet skis. Look, we have boat and RV facilities that are just boat and
aha.
RV. I told you I love niches. Storage is not just big orange doors with boxes of stuff behind them. There's artwork, there's wine, there's cars, boats, RVs. Businesses use storage for inventory, for their tools, you name it. And your grandmother's hand me down sideboard is in there as well. And all of your favorite childhood memories that you can't part with. Yeah, it's not just the stuff we use. Some people use storage weekly as part of their way of life. If you live in Florida, you don't have an attic or a basement.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
using your storage facility a lot more than I don't have one. But
And that's interesting. You just gave me another angle to approach this from as far as the thought process. Because, what fascinates me with it is how this scales. And not that you don't have liability and risk, but you do it. But in relationship, it's a whole lot less. A storage tenant isn't calling you typically in the middle of the night. Matter of fact, they're not calling you in the middle of the night because they can't access the facility in the middle of the night.
and there no one's answering the phone. So one of my favorite sayings is there's no such thing as a storage emergency unless somehow somebody gets trapped inside the facility and can't get out. That would be the only case. But
Uh,
there's no bats flying into windows, there's no toilets, no roofs leaking. The roof can leak, but we'll find out about it later.
uh-huh.
We won't
Yeah.
find out
Yeah.
at night.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, and that's one of the things that is so intriguing to me about it. Again, it's literally because people keep stuff. We keep everything. Like,
And we consume more, and now we can get more through Amazon faster than we ever could before. We're getting it same day, next day, and it's got to go somewhere, and we don't throw it out.
yeah, that is
And
impressive.
and that's Gen X. Everyone younger, they have a different mindset altogether. Storage is part of their way of life. It's not
Mm,
just it's not the extra garage or attic or basement. It's part of their way of life. You know what intrigues me the most about it?
what's that?
If I was 51 when I first started my real estate progression, I was in my 20s And it started with single family rental wholesaling first, I think. Single family rental or flip. I don't remember which came first. It was a long time ago. I was doing them all at the same time. And then you go through your real estate progression and you think that, and this is the way we were programmed. I'm not saying your listeners are programmed this way. I'm saying this is the way I was programmed 30 years ago or 25 years ago. The progression from there was get one, two, three, four rentals, then 10, then 20. And you go to meetings, you meet people with 30 and 40, and you're like, oh my God, they're like gods. And then the multifamily people, they were like on a different planet. They were just these amazing folks that have made it in life. I'm just this peon with a couple rentals. And had I known about, and was there education, and there wasn't at the time, that could teach people like me and you how to go buy storage as part of my next progression. So instead of
Mhm.
buying a 5 unit or a 10 or 20 unit multifamily, how about a 50 or 100 unit storage facility? Holy moly. That to me would have been life changing at that age because, first of all, that's most of the facilities out there. That opportunity is out there everywhere. Secondly, you can use the SBA to finance them. You can get 90% financing because they're businesses. It's the only hotels and storage are the only real estate that you can use the SBA for that I know of because it's an actual business. Unless you're a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant who's buying the business where you're going to, or buying the real estate where you're going to operate your business. For investors, which is what we are, that's the only real estate I know of that you can invest. Car washes, I shouldn't say that. There's other real estate like that, but the one that looks most like multifamily is storage and hotels, right? Hotels is a lot more management intensive, storage is a lot less. Hotels you manage by the night, storage managed by the month, multifamily is annual contract. So what to me should be the most intriguing thing to your listeners is how within reach owning storage is for them that they probably didn't realize. That is your leap, that is your very short bridge from resi into commercial. And most people don't realize this. And it's fascinating. You use SBA to do it, and there's 2 to 300 grand on it. Yeah, doing that in residential.
So, Joe, we're quickly getting into today's show, but I got my question for you. And it's a hindsight question that, all too often somebody will ask us and we look back, quote unquote, over everything that we've done and we realize what we probably should have done sooner. So, my question to you as you look back over everything that you've done in this and even being in this space now, what, if anything, you wish you would have done either differently or done sooner that you think would have had you in this place or further by now or prior? Sorry.
The things I wish didn't exist. I wish Corwin Millett had a podcast that I could listen to somebody talk about storage 25 years ago, but we didn't even have. I wish there was a Scott Myers who's out there teaching people how to buy storage, which I
Mhm.
ended up going through his program. I'm a graduate of that. My company is, we're very successful based on that. I actually teach at his academy. I teach people how to do this. I wish, in short, my answer is I wish I started sooner. The mistakes, but that aside, because it wasn't available to me. It's available to everybody listening now, but it wasn't available to us. So short of starting sooner in the space, so short of knowing about it sooner, since I started in the space, my regrets are not buying more smaller deals when we had the chance. We just assumed we had to buy bigger deals because of our bandwidth. And some of that's true. There's only so many you have resources as a company. But we could have done a lot more and been a lot more successful a lot sooner with a lot smaller deals. And that's one of my regrets. And so anyone listening that is thinking about it, get out there. Don't be afraid to jump into storage. Don't be afraid to look at these 500,000 to $1 million deals. They're not unattainable for you. All you need is the right coach and mentor or someone to guide you along, and the financial wherewithal. I think you're crazy for not taking a look at it. Maybe it's not right for you. I'm not saying it's right for everybody, but my goodness, you should be investigating because there's a tremendous amount of opportunity out there. It's owned by mom and pops. The demand is only going up. The population is only growing. The population that's using storage is growing. There's never been a better time to buy it because we buy storage based on the trailing 12, which is the last 12 months of operations. We're coming out of a period where nationally storage was down because there were less real estate transactions. Everyone's trailing time. So every facility you could buy right now is on sale. It's not being advertised on sale, but it is. Speaking, it's just never been a better time. And by the way, all of the big buyers out there are not trying to buy anything less than $1 million. So there's very few people even. There's less competition trying to buy it.
Interesting. That's profound. So, Joe, I want to thank you for being on with us today. Matter of fact, let me make sure, let's get your contact information out. Where can people find you, connect with you? Inevitably, there's going to be some people that's got some questions. So, where
Yeah.
can we connect with you in order to get some answers?
Best way to reach me is really just send me an email. Love to get an email from anybody interested in however you're thinking about it, possibly investing in storage. I can point you in the right direction. Maybe it's with us, maybe it's not. Happy to point you in the right direction. My email is joe at bellroseam.com. So that's JOE at BELROSE, A as in asset, M as in management.com.
Awesome. Joe, again, thank you so much for being on with us today. Thank you for the insight and most importantly, a peek, if you will, behind the curtain as to what happens in the storage facility industry. I am always fascinated by it. And you got my mind over here running 1,000 miles an hour, thinking, okay, who we can pull together and what kind of group we can form in order for us to be able to look at and connect with you guys and figure out how we need to target opportunities. So, again, thank you so much for taking time out and being a part of the Exit Strategies radio show family.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for doing what you're doing because you really are making a difference in people's lives. Because again, you and I didn't have these podcasts. You didn't have guests on to open your mind and at least point us in a direction to go check something out. So thank you.
Thank you. So, for our listeners, guys, look, y'all know how I feel. Y'all know what I say. I always challenge you, but most importantly, I deliver it to you this way, which is to tell you that I love you. I love you. I love you. And we're going to see you guys out there in those streets.